welcome. With the growth of the corporate attempts to influence government policies through various techniques, the issues of business relations with the government is increasingly becoming key issue for business ethics. As we have seen in the previous discussions, like there are three major actors in the scenario, the three major sectors. One is the market sector, another is the state sector, and the third sector that we have seen in the last module is that of the civil society organization. So, the state sector and the civil society organizations are the two sectors who have a major influence on how the business functions, and correspondingly the business is also spreading a major influence on how the state is functioning through its corporate citizenship roles. In today's discussion, we are going to study the interrelationships between the government and the corporate and the ethical issues that arise out of it. So, we will discuss about government regulations and business ethics. So, why this discussion is important? Because with the changing nature of time, with the changing nature of globalization, it's very important that the corporate knows their responsibility, and also the government knows what to expect of the corporate, because policing of the multinational organizations becomes very difficult in a globalized situations. So, what can be done in this context? How the government can make some influence on the corporate so that they are motivated to follow the sustainability practices. All this will be discussed in today's modules. Today's discussion will cover the role of government as an important stakeholder. It will discuss the ethical issues in the government business relations. It will take the global context of globalization and study this relationship of the government and changing relationship of the government and the business houses. It will look into the corporate citizenship role and how it is affecting the relationship with the government, and it will also focus the role of government in the sustainability issues. These will be the 5 modules of today's discussion. So, before we move on to the definition of the government as a stakeholder, let us visit some important definitions. So, by government we understand a variety of institutions and actors at different levels that share a common power to issue laws. By laws, we understand it serves as a codification into explicit rules of the consensus about what a society regards as right and wrong. By regulation, we understand rules that are issued by the governmental actors and other delegated authorities to constrain, enable, or encourage particular business behaviors. Regulation includes rule, definitions, laws, mechanisms, processes, sanctions and incentives. So, what is important over here, we'll see through the different upcoming discussion. The regulations are very important, because that is where the controlling mechanism comes. That is where it becomes important, is implementation of those regulations also, and it depends on the, and ethical issues come up regarding this, like how strong the government is in not only stating the regulations or defining it, but also implementing it. Can it be implemented properly? What is the relative power dynamics between the government and the corporates? So, can it be universally implemented or not? These questions will become relevant in the subsequent discussions. So, regulations are very important in the context when we are discussing government and business ethics, and that will be the focus of our discussion throughout. When we understand government as a stakeholder of business, as per the definition of stakeholder, it is a group or individual who affects or gets affected by the nature of the business and the things that it's produced or the services produced. When we are looking government as a stakeholder of business, we see two different roles of the government. On one hand is the government's role as the elected representative of the citizens' interest, because in truest sense of the term, government is the body which is meant to take care of the citizens' needs, expectations, and meeting their demands, and that is the purpose, like that the citizens have elected them for. So, government has two roles, where the government has the role of being elected representative of the citizens' interest, and another role where the government is an actor or a group of actors with interests of its own, where interest of its own means for the survival of the government itself. So, when the government has an elected representative of the citizens' interest, they have two different roles. They can play two different roles. They can play the role of restricting the interests of business, means growth of business, so restricting business, or they can enable business. Government is an actor for its own survival, so that it gets elected again, or it can maintain its own sustenance. Government can play two roles again, which is dependent on business and competing with business for its self-sustenance. So, these are the four different roles in which government do interact with business. It can play the role of restricting the business, it can play the role of enabling the business, it can play the role of being dependent on business, and also it can play the role of competing with business. In the next discussions that are going to follow, we are going to elaborate on each of these roles, and from the after the elaboration, maybe we are going to focus also into the ethical issues which may generate out of these four differing roles that the government has with the corporate. So, as we already discussed, the government has the role of being the representative of the citizens' interest. So, as a representative of the citizens' interest, they can play two roles of either they can play two roles of either restricting the business or enabling the business. And when we are talking of restricting or enabling the business, we understand the licenses given, the licenses given to operate, defines the condition for the license to operate of the business. So, whether it gives a restrictive environment or a facilitatory environment. So, by restricting the business, so it may so happen, it may put certain conditions, strict conditions, which may restrict the global competitors to enter, so that it gives like a facilitating environment for the local competitors to survive, and it gives a they do not give any special advantage to the global competitors who are coming in. In terms of enabling the business, they take up roles in which will inviting MNCs to come in by giving them certain relaxations in the regulations, giving them certain benefits. All these type of thing will help them, the business, to come in and maybe contribute to the country's development. So, however, there is a debate about the degree of governmental responsibility for the functioning of the economy. How far the government is responsible for the responsible for the functioning of the economy. So, it may range from a very passive role to of being laissez-faire, means watching things as it is happening, to a very forceful role of forming in forceful role in deciding on the industrial policy. So, in laissez-faire, it just forms rules and regulations, and rules and regulations to control the compliances of the economic towards the to control the compliances, but where in forceful industrial policy takes a very active role in deciding the policies and interfering with the economy. So, in this case, when it is like the forceful role in industrial policy, it is in many cases it's found like the many organizations are government owned, and that's why like government owned, or where you find like the government takes active step in preventing employees from getting affected when the employers go to bankruptcy, and these type of conditions are forceful role in industrial policies. When you're talking of government as an actor or a group of actors, here we are having the self-interest of the government in mind, where their self-interest is to be re-elected. So, when there is a self-interest to be re-elected, the two roles that can be played over here are the governments are dependent on business, or the governments are also maybe competing with business also. So, when we are talking of government is dependent on business, where ethical issues may come up regarding government is dependent on business to provide some of the facilities, take care of the social problems, or when it talks of party funding, these type of issues will come up when we discuss issues like government's dependency on business. When governments are competing with business, in that case, so we find like the businesses like which are generally getting privatized now have been taken up by the corporates, like the publicly funded organizations and facilities are becoming more privatized and being taken up by the corporates, and the government public funded organizations for these specific services are now competing with the business houses with the corporates for their own survival. So, these are conditions where governments are competing with the business. In similar nature of business, when there is a public organization and a privatized services, for the efficiency and effectiveness, maintaining the efficiency and effectiveness of the services and products, their governments and the business houses are competing with each other to be in the market to attract more customers. So, these are also a type of relationship when government is an actor and with an interest of its own. Based on these four different types of relations, as we understand, like because the nature of relationship is not same, somewhere the government is playing a more dominant role in either restricting or enabling the business, a role that of a regulator. And when we are talking of the role as another actor, similar in power with that of the competitor, so just like another business competitor, so the government is playing a role of competitor, or even it is dependent on the organization for its own survival. So, here the corporate is expected to be more higher in power dynamics as compared to the government. So, there are different power relationships are there in these four different types of relations, which may give rise to different ethical issues, which we will be discussing in the next module. Thank you.